She always said he was just a chapter she'd closed. A page turned, a lesson learned. That's how she spoke about him. Not with bitterness or longing, but with a kind of practiced neutrality that made me believe there was nothing left to worry about. I remember once asking her if she ever talked to him. She'd smiled, slipped her arms around my waist, and said, "He's in the past, baby. You're mine now." But when he walked into her parents' dining room that Saturday night, when I saw the way everyone looked at him, then at me, I realized something was off, and I wasn't crazy for sensing it. The night began simple enough. Her dad had just retired, and the whole family was celebrating. Her mom, her brother, 2 cousins, and a few close friends from their side. I was the outsider, the in-law still trying to prove he belonged, even after 3 years of marriage. I wore the shirt Emma liked best on me, brought the wine she said her father adored, rehearsed the stories I knew made her mother laugh. I wanted to belong. I really did. We were just settling into our seats when the doorbell rang. Her cousin Liz jumped up to answer it. I didn't think anything of it until I heard a voice, low, confident, familiar to everyone but me. Then came the laughter. Not polite laughter. The kind of laughter that comes from shared history. Inside jokes. Memories. He stepped into the room like he owned it. Tall, lean, sun-browned. Sharp jawline, navy button-up rolled to his elbows. And the second his eyes scanned the table and landed on me, he didn't even flinch. Just nodded, gave a little "Hey, man." Like we'd met before. Like I should have known who he was. But I didn't. Emma stood up slowly. There was a flicker in her eyes, a hesitation I'd never seen before. Then a smile. "Wow," she said, walking toward him, arms open. "I didn't know you were back in town." No hug, but her voice trembled, just slightly. Enough for me to catch it. Her mother was already pulling out an extra chair. Her dad was pouring him a glass of wine. Liz scooted over to make room. Nobody asked if he was staying for dinner. They just made space. I sat there with a dumb smile frozen on my face, heart beating in my ears, pretending I wasn't unraveling inside. He said his name was Caleb. Just Caleb. No last name, as if it wasn't needed. Because clearly, everyone else already knew it. He talked about some project he was consulting on in Boston, and how he had a break between contracts, whatever that meant. Emma laughed a little too hard when he joked about still being terrible at time management. Her brother teased him about that old camping trip they took years ago. Liz said, "Remember when we tried to set you 2 up with those twin yoga instructors?" And they all laughed again. All of them. Except me. I didn't eat much after that. Just pushed my food around and kept sipping my wine, pretending to listen, pretending I wasn't counting every glance, every gesture, every reference to a past I'd clearly never been invited into. At one point, Caleb looked at me and said, "So, how'd you 2 meet?" Emma answered for me, quick and bright. "Work conference. Total accident." I spilled coffee on his laptop. Everyone laughed again. Caleb smirked. "Guess that's one way to reboot a guy's life." Emma leaned into me then, kissed my cheek like she was trying to prove something. To me? To him? I couldn't tell. But the kiss felt hollow, like a prop. And that's when it hit me. This wasn't a coincidence. He wasn't just passing through. He was invited. After dinner, I followed Emma into the kitchen while she carried plates. I didn't raise my voice. Just asked, "Did you know he was coming tonight?" She didn't answer right away. Just rinsed a glass, then said, "I didn't plan it, if that's what you're asking." "But you knew," I said quietly. She turned to face me then, her expression flat. "My mom told me this morning. I didn't think it would be a big deal." "It's your ex." She shrugged. "He's a family friend. He always has been." That part stung more than I expected. Always has been. Then why had she never said that before? "You told me he was in the past," I said. Her lips tightened. "He is." "Then why do you all still talk about him like he never left?" Her jaw tensed. "Because he's not some monster, okay? We ended things years ago. It was mutual. He stayed close to my family, but we're done. It's not a threat unless you make it one." I didn't say anything for a long time. Just nodded slowly, then walked out to the porch and called a cab. I didn't go home that night. Not because I wanted to make a point or play some dramatic game of withdrawal. I just needed space. The kind of space that lets your thoughts breathe before they start lying to you. The cab dropped me off at a hotel 10 minutes away. I didn't have a bag or even a toothbrush, just my wallet, my keys, and this hollow, pressing weight in my chest that wouldn't let me sleep. I lay on the stiff mattress, staring at the ceiling, replaying every smile Emma gave him, every time she let him finish her sentence, every moment they laughed about things I knew nothing about. That kind of intimacy doesn't vanish, no matter what stories we tell ourselves. We'd fought before. Normal couple stuff. Money, time, the usual gaps between expectations and reality. But we always circled back. Always found our footing. Until now. This wasn't a fight. It was a fracture. Not loud, not violent. Just quiet, and wide, and growing by the hour. The next morning, she texted me. Just one line. I hope you're okay. Please come home. I didn't reply. Not right away. I needed more than space. I needed truth. So I did what I never thought I'd do. I went to her brother. Matt was younger than Emma by 2 years. Sharper than he let on. Quieter than he needed to be. We weren't close, but we'd had enough beers together for me to know he didn't play games. I called him around noon. Told him I needed to talk, alone. He agreed without hesitation. We met at a quiet diner off 4th and Main. One of those places where the booths still had cigarette burns in the vinyl, and the waitress called everyone Han. I got there first. Ordered coffee. Sat there bouncing my knee under the table like a man waiting for news he didn't want to hear. Matt slid into the booth across from me like he already knew what I was going to ask. You saw him, he said simply. I nodded. And now you're wondering what you walked into, he added. Yeah, I said. Something like that. He sighed, ran a hand through his hair, and looked down at his chipped coffee mug. Caleb was around a lot, man. Before you. Before everything. He was like family. My dad used to call him his unofficial son-in-law. You get the picture. I do now, I said, trying not to sound bitter. Matt looked up at me, something apologetic in his expression. But it wasn't just that. Emma and him, they were serious. For a long time. Lived together for a bit. Everyone thought they'd get married. I felt that one in my spine. Then one day, it just ended, he continued. No big fight. No scandal. She said she needed something different. Something calmer. She met you a few months later. Did he ever really leave? I asked. Matt hesitated, then said, physically, yeah, but emotionally. He shook his head. I don't think people around her ever stopped seeing him as the what-if. And what about Emma? I asked. Has she? I think she tried, Matt said. But when someone's woven into the fabric of your life for that long, it's not easy to unravel, even if you love someone else. That should have comforted me. Instead, it felt like confirmation of something I didn't want to admit, that I'd been loving her in the shadow of someone she never really let go of. I didn't go home after that. I walked the city for hours. No destination. Just me and the sound of my footsteps, echoing down streets that suddenly felt less familiar than before. It's strange how quickly the ground under your life can shift. One day, everything feels secure. The next, you're questioning things you once took for granted, like trust, like history, like the look in your wife's eyes when she sees someone she used to love. By nightfall, I ended up outside our apartment building. The windows were lit. Her car was in the driveway. For a second, I considered going in, sitting down, talking like we used to. But I couldn't. Not yet. I stood there, hands in my pockets, heart pounding like a second heartbeat behind my ribs. And then I saw it. A shadow moved in the window, 2 figures. Emma. And him. I froze. He was standing near the couch. She handed him something. A box? A book? I couldn't tell. They weren't touching. Not laughing. Just talking. But it didn't matter. He was in my home. And I wasn't. A few minutes later, he walked out the front door. Alone. He didn't see me. Just got into his car and drove off. That's when I knew what I had to do. She opened the door before I could knock. Almost like she'd been waiting behind it, listening for my footsteps on the stairs. Her eyes were swollen, like she hadn't slept, or had cried just enough to pretend she hadn't. The living room behind her was dim. The box she'd handed Caleb was still on the coffee table, unopened. I told him to come get his stuff, she said, voice low. That's all it was. I didn't answer. I walked past her, sat on the edge of the couch. Same spot I used to curl into on Sunday mornings with her legs in my lap and coffee balanced on the armrest. Now it felt like a stranger's furniture. She sat too, careful, like the distance between us could still be bridged with the right arrangement of words. I should have told you, she started. Yeah, I said. You should have. I didn't think it mattered anymore. It matters if he still matters, I replied, looking her straight in the eye. She didn't flinch. That hurt more than if she had. I didn't invite him, she said again, softer this time. My mom texted me the morning of, said he was in town and might stop by. I didn't stop it. I didn't warn you. And I didn't think you'd react the way you did, because I didn't think. You didn't think I'd notice? I cut in. Her silence said everything. I stood and walked to the window. The street was quiet, the kind of quiet you only notice when something loud has just ended. Like a storm. Or a lie. You looked at him like he was a memory you didn't want to forget, I said, not turning around. She stood too, voice shaking. He was a big part of my life. But he's not my future. Then why am I the only one who didn't know who he was? That was the question. The real one. The one that burned all the way down. She didn't answer for a long time. Then, because I was afraid if you knew how close we used to be, you'd leave. I turned then. Looked at her. Really looked. She wasn't hiding. Wasn't performing. She looked like someone who'd been caught between two truths. The one she lived and the one she buried. You made me sit at that table with everyone who knew your history, except me, I said. You let me walk in blind. I didn't want him to mean anything, she whispered. I didn't want to give him power over us. But pretending he didn't exist just gave him more. She nodded, biting her lip. Her voice cracked. You're right. I screwed up. I sat back down. My legs didn't want to hold me anymore. She came closer, but didn't touch me. Smart. Because I wasn't ready. I don't want to lose you, she said. I looked at her then, eyes burning. You already lost part of me, Emma. The part that believed I knew everything that mattered about you. The room went quiet again. Not angry quiet. Just the kind where neither of you knows how to hold the air between you anymore. I need time, I said finally. Her eyes welled. Okay. I'm not saying this ends here. But it doesn't go back to before either. I know. I stood, grabbed my keys. Walked to the door. She followed, paused behind me. Where will you go? I opened the door, looked back. I don't know, I said. But somewhere I don't feel like a guest in my own story. Then I left. That was 6 weeks ago. She's texted a few times. Short messages. No pressure. Just presence. And me? I've been staying with a friend out in Montclair. Writing a lot. Running more. Trying to remember what parts of me existed before I became her husband. Some nights, I still think about that dinner. The laughter I didn't understand. The history I was never told. I don't think she meant to hurt me. But that's the thing about pain. It doesn't need to be intentional to leave a scar. Do I still love her? Yes. But love doesn't erase omission. And trust doesn't survive on what's left unsaid. Maybe we'll find a way back. Or maybe I'll just carry this with me. A quiet reminder that being honest isn't just about telling the truth. It's about letting someone into the full picture, not just the parts you think they can handle. Because the past doesn't stay buried, especially when it shows up at dinner and smiles like it never left.